Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to SARs July meeting. Lovely to see you all here and also on Zoom as well. So tonight, SARS's great pleasure is to welcome for the first time Georgina Sierra to speak for us. Georgina is a professional astrologer who combines with tarot and is based in Sydney. She also holds a Master of Science degree. Before spending or finding her life purpose, she worked as a research scientist in chemistry with stints in aviation, theatre and music between seeing clients. After graduating from Sydney Astrology School, she obtained an international recognised diploma in astrology, which was FAA practitioner's diploma, and a qualification in consulting skills from OPA, and is currently a member of both. Georgina is also the recipient of the 2023 OPA mentorship program. So now I'd like to hand it over to Georgina and ask everyone to put their hands together to give her a big welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Georgina. Thank you for coming. The weather's crap. But thank you for coming, and thank you for everyone who's joining us online. I'm really excited to be presenting today, and thank you for SARS for inviting me along. It's really an honour, and to be talking about Vesta. Again, this is another asteroid that I thought I knew until I really looked into her, and I was like, whoa, you're deeper than I thought you were. And there's not that much known about her. You know, she sits on the relationship axis. We're going to talk a lot of Virgo stuff, a lot of Scorpio stuff as well. We're going to get really dark and deep, which is exciting. It's like a soap opera. So to begin, how do I go to the next screen? Oh, excuse me, technical difficulty. How do I go to the next slide? Or do I scroll? No? Should be this one, shouldn't it?
That should. Yeah, full screen.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country first. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, in particular the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, as the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting and coming to you live from. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I also pay my respects to all of our elders, mine, everyone present online and who are watching the recording. We are talking about mine and millions of others' ancestors today. And I feel that the land that we are on as intuitives, as astrologers, we really use that energy, and we use the energy of whoever has come before us as well to guide us. Oh, not again. Sorry. Are we using the keynote or the PowerPoint? We should. So everyone at home just doesn't like to go on to the next one.
Yep.
That was.
It's just this one here.
That one.
Yeah,
okay.
that one. Yeah.
There we go. All right, keep my finger on there. So I'd like to talk first about the asteroids. If you've heard me talk about the other asteroids before, I am reusing some slides. You're going to get bored for a few slides, but I just wanted to reiterate for those who don't really know much about the asteroids, what they're all about. So the ancient goddesses were very prominent in ancient times. I mean, to understand how prominent the divine feminine was, or women were, like in the movie 300, if you've seen it, and there's that scene before King Leonidas says, "This is Sparta," and kicks the guy in the pit from Persia. He looks behind him to his wife and she gives a nod. She's the one that tells them, do what you've got to do. That's how strong women were. And the goddesses, you know, they didn't go away. We have religion come in and the patriarchy rise, but please prove me wrong. But the goddesses and the gods haven't gone away. They've changed their form. They're still with us. So even, you know, while the patriarchy had risen, they were waiting in the background.
Click on the white section of it.
The white section?
Yeah.
Ah, thank you. All right. So they waited until the start of the 1800s, when the 4 major asteroids, Ceres, Pallas Athena, Vesta, and Juno, were discovered. Before the discovery in astrology, the moon was denoted as the mother and Venus as the mate, and she's still very much so. But when you are consulting with a client and you start just focusing on the moon, it's a little bit of a hit and miss. The same with Venus. The goddesses provide a much deeper interpretation. Soon after these asteroids were discovered, in the 19th century, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Canty Stanton were born. And they sought to increase women's participation in society. They were just the first step in the goddesses rising again. And they take their time. Women are like that. We will wait for our time to come back. Until the 1970s, they waited for Eleanor Buck to incarnate and publish the first asteroid ephemeris. And it was a time when women were rediscovering the feminine creativity beyond what they traditionally do. We're not just incubators, we're not just cleaners, we don't just look after your kids and stay at home all the time. We can do more, we can do that and we can do more. We can enter politics, science, education. And the revival of the goddess was coming back in women's spirituality. So just as we've seen with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto taking on the themes of the times when they were discovered, so did the asteroids, very quietly, very subtly, by how they were named. And usually find that the astronomers that have discovered these asteroids have very strong asteroid signatures with the asteroids that they discovered, which is, I thought, really interesting. So their location in the asteroid belt sits between the personal planets and the transpersonal planets. So they can represent what we go through personally and how we put that out into the collective consciousness from a personal point of view, especially the archetypal feminine principle. The major themes of the goddesses are transformation. When you go through an asteroid transit, you are being transformed in some way or other. And like Chiron, where you've got the wound and you've got to help other people heal, or you help them, and that in turn helps your soul wound, the goddesses do the opposite. You heal yourself first, and the universe will bring someone in who just has to meet you. You know something that will help them along. And going through these transits, they're the key to our rites of initiation. So it'll unlock the doors to understanding the universe and why we are here. Why did we incarnate? The amazing Demetra George said in her book, Asteroid Goddesses, "We need asteroids as the traditional planets simply do not and cannot fully explain the issues which are emerging simply because they are new." Now, my mother, she's a Uranus return baby, and her name's Demetra as well. And I would say to her growing up, I have Ceres in Scorpio, so I can talk, and she's got Ceres in Scorpio too, so we can talk about anything, well, nearly anything. And I would say to her, did you know that these things exist in life? You know, this is new that's coming up. This is a lot when I was growing up. She goes, oh, honey, those things always existed. We never talked about them. You know, and this is true because she goes, the people are the same. It's the eras that change. People are reborn, they don't know about them. So we go back to the goddesses, like our grandmothers, you know, they give us this advice, and seeing them in our charts gives us a lot of information. I also got this fantastic graphic from Demetra George's book, and it shows us where the 4 major asteroids sit on a chart. I'll start with Pallas Athena. She sprouted from her father Zeus's head, because the gods, they just like to swallow their children because they think their children are going to overthrow them, which eventually they do. But what can you do? She sprouted from his head, and she's all about creativity, that spark of like aha moments and all these creative projects that you'll come up with. She's also about masculine femininity and feminine masculinity. And one of my very good friends, her daughter came out as non-binary. She's only 15, and she's always asking me about Athena. And I'm like, that's so what, sweetie? She's your asteroid, you know, and she loves everything about her. So she's really good about all of that. Ceres on the opposite side, she's at the depth of our chart. She's down in the IC with Pluto, her son-in-law. You know, she goes through this transformation in her life. And when you go through a Ceres transit, it's like going through a Pluto transit. You've got to get real, pretty much. I'll go a little bit more into these other asteroids as well as we go along. Juno, on the other hand, she's about relationships and relating to the other and having a balanced relationship. Now, Juno is known as Hera in ancient Greece, and she was married to Zeus, and he was like the god of the gods. And he thought, well, I got married, so I can still go around and cheat on my wife. And she's like, no, you can't. And she got spiteful and just went backwards and forwards. And they just kept getting at each other. But Juno in our chart shows us where can we support our partner, but where is our partner equally supporting us? Otherwise, you'll get that bitterness that goes backwards and forwards. And then we have Vesta, who we're here for today. And we'll look at the mythology first about her to understand her more. She's on the ascendant. She's very much about the self, but she has also very much about who you are in a relationship and who you are in a relationship to yourself. Really? Again? There we go. All righty. So, there's not much known about Vesta, but what we do know is that in ancient Greece, she's known as Hestia, or Hestia, and she's the goddess of hearth fire. In Roman mythology, she's known as Vesta, as we know her today, and her name comes from the Sanskrit root vas, meaning shining, which leads to the flame. She was the first Olympian born to Cronus, also known as Saturn, and Rhea, and the last one to be reborn when she was freed from the stomach. Again, the grandfather and all that. Everyone eats their kids. Now, when she was freed, Apollon and Poseidon wanted to marry her. She didn't want to get married, so she was known as the Virgin. She's like, I don't need you guys. I want to do my own thing. And she decided to stay on Mount Olympus and tend to the flame up there where all the gods were. And from there, an altar in every home and town centre was erected and taken care of. She's portrayed in long white robes, and she can hold either a lit torch or candle in one hand and a votive bowl in the other. So, as goddess of the hearth, that flame that they tended to symbolises unity and cohesion of family and state. And she's about protection. She's also about being honest in your dealings with yourself and with others, and her name was used to seal oaths and sacred contracts. She has the sacred law of hospitality, offerings of fire, food, and shelter to strangers. And I was looking into this, I was reading about it, and I kept thinking of the word in Greek, philotimo. It just had to be that word because it's the one word that's not translatable in any language. So to understand what this word means, I actually found this mural. It's in Marrickville. And Ox King was talking with the immigrants in the area because it was a very strong Greek community. And Vesta kept coming up in the mythology and everything that they were talking about. So to understand Vesta more and what this philotimo means, let's say you're on a holiday in Greece and you decide, I'm just going to wing it. You know, I'm just going to go trek and go through the mountains or whatever. And the sun is setting and you don't have any accommodation. And you come across this beautiful village and there's a tavern there. And you sit down for a meal and they ask you where you're from. And you're like, oh, I'm from Australia. They're like, oh, there's a guy down here. He used to live in Australia. He emigrated there, didn't like it, came back. We should introduce you. And you're asking, you know, also if there's any place where you can stay. That's Greek Airbnb. So, you know, word of mouth. And they're like, Bob's got a place or a room. And you go there, you meet Bob. He's absolutely lovely. You can trust him. He will put you up. He will feed you. He'll give you breakfast the next morning. and you offer him something and he will not take the money. In fact, he will call his friend because it's his sister's relative or something like that, or, you know, and he'll take you to the next bus stop and you'll pay half price for that taxi. That's philotimon. It's that protection, offering safety to strangers. And it's very rare. And in this mural, I really love it because you've got Vesta there with the flame, and it's talking about that philotimon, and it's got the colours of the wattle, and how wherever Greeks go, we take things from home and take it to our new homeland to link the two. It's to link our homes. And Vesta is very much about our home, where we belong and who we are. At Delphi, Vesta was worshipped with a heap of glowing coals, and that's the navel and the center of the world. And it's called the omphalos. So that's where, you see Vesta everywhere pretty much. And I think you've got Vesta in some form across a lot of cultures. I think Australia's very Vesta-like as well. She welcomes so many people in without any question. But let's ignore the history that, we're talking about the immigrants in the last century. It's another story, that one. So in hearing Vesta, you would think about the Vestal virgins. At a very young age, they were admitted, about 6 years of age, into the temple. They took a vow of chastity and celibacy that lasted 30 years. Their duties were to be sworn to secrecy, to tend to the flame, purifying the shrine with holy water, performing daily devotions and offerings, and guarding the sacred relics like the contracts and what have you. And when their time was up, they were free to go and get married and do whatever they wanted. Few did, because they had such great benefits. Now, they were known as virgins, but they weren't virgins in the sense that we think of it as the patriarchal religious virgin today. It's because they didn't need, and apologies, I'm talking very binary terms, because this is how the Greek patriarchy sort of brought it in. But it's about not being married and not belonging to a man, not belonging to anyone. You are your own self, you're independent. Don't need to be defined by anyone. They were known as sacred harlots because they chose who they slept with. No one told them. And if they happened to get pregnant, those children that were born were put in succession, in royal succession, such as the first king of Rome, Romulus. His mother was Rhea Silva, who was a Vestal virgin. It makes me wonder about the European bloodlines. That goes back to the Vestal virgins. They had absolute authority over their lives, but if they did commit an offence, it was punishable by death. And they could be buried alive as well, which is very horrible. But their privileges were, they were free from paternal control. They owned their own property. They could set a criminal free. Best thing I love is they got the best theatre seats. They were the safekeepers of wills and solemn contracts. And when they died, they had the choice to say, I want to be buried in the city limits, which is very rare back in Roman times. So there's not much about Vesta mythologically. A lot of astrologers didn't think that there was a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of secrecy with Ceres, but we know more about her mythologically. And so with Vesta, you think, oh, she's not that important. But let's see. Astronomically, she was discovered in 1807. She was the 4th asteroid to be discovered, and she's quite big. So she's second in size after Ceres, 9% total mass of all asteroids, and she was analysed by the Dawn vehicle before analysing Ceres. She is spherical. She could be classified as a dwarf planet, but she's not heavy enough, so she misses out on that classification. And the really cool thing, because we know that Vesta is about the flame, is that she has a crust, a mantle, and a core like the Earth. We've got this huge fire beneath us if we go straight down to the core of the Earth. So it's very Vesta-like. And having this core-like structure in the asteroid belt denoted as Vesta as well, I think that's really cool. I love that association. Astrologically, her symbol is that of the fire, and she's associated with the element of fire. Now, when it comes to orbs, keep it really tight. If you see her in a chart on her own making an aspect, 1 to 2 degrees, 3 degrees even, as Lee Lehman would state in the literature, but I haven't found much more in the literature about that. But you do notice that the asteroids, they sort of pop up in these stelliums in your chart. I've had some people, I've done readings, they know their charts very, very well. They don't want to see them. And I say, have you seen your asteroids? And they're like, no. And you'll put it up on the screen. They're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Right? So they love popping up in stelliums. It's like, you know, talking with someone and, you know, you say, how are you? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, fine. And then the asteroids will pop up going, no, she's not. Did you know what happened last week? That's the kind of energy they'll bring in. They'll bring much more of a story in there. They're fabulous. So they'll take about just over 3.5 years to go around a chart, 2 to 3 months per sign. But if she goes retrograde, she spends 9 months of going retrograde. So she really wants you to work on your stuff, on your Vesta stuff. Her associated rulerships are Virgo and Scorpio. And her polarities are devotion versus fanaticism. So being devoted to something and not losing yourself to the point where you become a fanatic about it. There's a very fine line there. And her energy is that of Mercury and Pluto. The asteroids do not have their own energies. They take a mixture of our basic planets. So let's talk about as a ruler of Scorpio. It's a lot to do with sex. And I found this really interesting because she sits mostly on the ascendant, but she's mostly about who we are in relationship to someone else, but being true to ourselves and not losing ourselves, which is very hard. It's a very hard thing, especially when you become a mother. You know, you don't know who you are. You are still the same person, you're just wearing another hat, but it takes a lot of time. And I remember when I became a mother for the first time, I had Jupiter going right over my Venus and Vesta. And I lost myself. I really did. I was going through my midlife transits, and it wasn't until, you know, that passed and I started studying astrology. I started finding out about myself and about all these things, which is amazing. But let's talk about this. So if you identify as a woman, it's about serving your moon goddess, your cycles. I don't care if you're born as a woman or you become a woman. Every woman and every man as well, we have our cycles. We have our downtime. We have our balsamic phase every month. Honor that. You really need to honor that. And it's about connecting to the divine with someone else, okay? And having that pure connection with someone. She does link Venus to Juno. So when it comes to Juno, Venus is very much like, you know, the romance and the courting and all the beautiful stuff. But Juno is about the commitment, the real stuff with another person. If you identify as male, it's about being sensitive to your partner's needs and honoring your feminine side. It can link to Mars. We can be more aggressive and macho. You're like, oh, you know, I'm too masculine for all that stuff. No, you've got to honor it. But if you're not facing that, this is what you can be someone who avoids long-term commitment, be known as a user or as a heartbreaker. The other themes like that are for everyone, and I've spread them out. Otherwise, we'd just have a really uneven. I'm a Libra. It'll be really uneven. It can link to themes of shame and guilt around around your sexuality, fertility, intimacy, and what's happening to me today? Alienation issues. She does also link to Saturn in terms of boundaries and commitment, what focus you have. And now that we've got Saturn in Pisces, it's very much about what boundaries are we going to put up and what are we going to dissolve? And we're coming up to that conjunction with Neptune. She's also about oppression, repression, and freedom, and about projecting. The thing I feared the most happened. What you think gets out into the universe. So you've got to be careful about that. What do you want for yourself? There are themes of discrimination, expressing spiritual devotion, as opposed, as we said, to that fanaticism, and fears around being in a relationship and losing yourself. Because if Vestal virgins did not honor their chastity, they were buried alive. So it's like being the witch burned at the stake. I mean, that's going to take, you know, it's going to make a mark on your soul. You're going to bring that into the next life or further lifetimes. As a ruler of Virgo, it's about your creativity and being a channel of service. Now, there's more general themes across for everyone, but there's just a couple of things that are more towards those who identify as women. And it's, I said, not barren or depleted. Just because you do not create through the traditional having children does not mean you're barren or depleted. It's about having that creativity in your life that's true to your life purpose. And about not being ashamed about your sexuality as well. Across the spectrum, it's about fulfilling one's dharma, what your life purpose is, what you love to do. You might want to run through the fields naked with bunnies everywhere. You might want to be the Prime Minister of Australia. It's whatever you love to do for you. If you don't, you're not going to feel right. You will not feel right deep down in the core of your soul, and that part of you that only you can see, and any other higher power. And if you do not fulfill your dharma, you might become a martyr and alienate others, going, it's because of you that I didn't get to do this, and putting it on others because, you know, you made sacrifices. Sure, you may have made sacrifices, but did you honor who you are? You're going to go back to your life purpose. Don't throw it on other people. Where the Virgin withdraws to merge with another, like the Vestal Virgin, they took time to prepare before they slept with someone else. It was a sacred thing for them. And it's also for us to, you know, as we said, retreat and replenish our energy. You can become centered and balanced when you honor your Vesta. Know how to focus on things rather than being scattered everywhere. And as opposed as well on the other end, to be so focused you don't see anything else, like a horse having those, I forgot what they're called. You know what I mean? So they can focus when they're racing. Yeah. It's about being committed versus being scared and not committing to someone else. There's a health focus on the self, but when you honor your Vesta, it's, you know, being exercising, looking at holistic medicine and meditation, as opposed to abusing your body through egocentricity. So you might be someone who discovers this protein powder and you're like, oh, it's awesome. You know, you've got some guys going, you've got to take this stuff. Yeah, look at my muscles, you know, and shoving it on other people. Okay, don't do that. Okay, everyone does their own thing. If it's the right thing for you, awesome. Don't, you know, put it on someone else. Invested through Virgo is about treating your body as a temple. You know, seeing sex as something pure and medicinal as opposed to being something for exploitation, repression, or control. Because no matter how you unite with someone through this sexual act, your chakras line up. They
want to write again?
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the
Sex.
sex and the hermit in tarot. I'll continue. Hopefully people can hear me. Thank you. I'll just go right ahead. But the hermit, if you look, it doesn't matter the tarot deck that you use. The hermit always has a flame of some sort. Even in Angel Tarot, little heart, there's a flame. So, and it's depicted as the Vestal priestesses as well. You've got to hibernate a bit whenever you see the hermit come up in a reading. Some psychological themes, as we said, it's about focus and commitment. We do have the sexual themes, the principle of virginity, but the purity of the self more. The sublimation of sexual energy. I see that, I'll go back to chemistry, it's like solid to gas, but it's like having that pure union with someone else. And further occult themes. We'll get there, we'll get there. So, in comparison with the other asteroids, I find that there are 3 stages, even with Pallas Athena, Ceres, Juno, and Vesta, that line up with our Saturn return as markers. Pallas Athena went from the maiden. She adopted a child and became a mother. And she was known, you know, for knowledge and war and being very wise. She doesn't just storm right in and, you know, charge, it's war. She'll sit there and be very diplomatic. So she's that very wise counsel. Ceres goes with Vesta into that introspection. She's the type of asteroid that you will see if you go through a transit and something hurts you and you have a little bit of a pity party. You can't help it, you're human. That's that introspection. But once you start getting over that and starting to heal, you'll get those creative ideas going, oh, hang on, I know how to get out of this rut. And that's what Ceres did. She finally was like, right, I'm going up to the gods and I'm just going to, you know, get my daughter out of the underworld and negotiate with Pluto. And then when you step into your power, she's about healing and renewal. Juno, she starts about initially attracting a partner, you know, that very Venusian energy. And once you're in union with a partner, about supporting each other equally. But she's also about later in life when you might lose your partner, either through death, loss or separation. You see a lot of women going, who am I? You know, I left everything to my partner. What am I going to do? And finding yourself again, which is where Vesta comes in. Initially, you discover your sexuality, you discover who you are, and through relationships with others. Eventually, you start focusing on what makes you happy. What is your life purpose? Why are you here? And what do you want out of a relationship? And later on in life, it's about having a divine connection with others, a bit of counseling as well. You know, what makes others happy and teaching them about that. So her higher objectives overall is where we see our mission and purpose in life beyond ourselves, honoring ourselves, but also beyond ourselves on the needs of the collective. The purpose is to warm our hearts, otherwise our heart goes out and we freeze. Like the Vestal virgins, they had to keep the flame alive, otherwise they were killed. You had to keep it, and it's like, who turned off the lights? You didn't want to admit, you know, but for yourself, who turned off the light? If you realize someone turned off your light, you're going to get very angry. Yeah, okay, so you've got to keep your flame alive. It keeps you alive. Ovid said, Vesta is the same as the earth. Under both of them is a perpetual fire. We've got that perpetual fire below us and in our hearts. So I hope you know where Vesta is in your chart. I'll go through all of the signs and the houses. So a sign placement can indicate your style of focus and commitment, what you need to achieve focus in your life, and your personal sexual energy. Your Vesta's house placement can show where you're dedicated and what you'd be committed to and where you can experience limitations. Okay, yeah. Harmonious aspects are easy blendings of energies. Challenging aspects, it's about the urge that you're feeling compared to and balancing it what you need spiritually. So, I love putting celebrities up. If, like Robert Downey Jr., you have Vesta in Aries or the first house, it is about your own ideas. It is about being yourself and not being told what to do, pretty much. You do not want to be dominated by other people. You can alienate yourself by being slightly or excessively self-centered and pushing other people away from that. You need to retain your own identity in your relationships, and you're dedicated with having a relationship with yourself. Like Robert Downey Jr., he pretty much lost his path in the 90s. He turned to drugs. He had a lot of issues that he had to work through, but he found himself eventually. And look at him today. He's really focused on his career and his family and his life, and he's doing some great things. If like Cary Grant, oh, he's so debonair. He has Vesta in Taurus and in the second house, and seemed like a very stable, he always played those characters, you know, they were very stable, you know, and that came across, and it's in his chart. Any alienation or limitations would be that they're too steady and inflexible. Sexually, they do need to honor their sensuality, right? And being true to themselves, because if they don't honor their sensuality, they can be insensitive to their partners. And Cary Grant, it has come out that he did have relationships with men, and you know, back 50s and 60s, you couldn't come out, you know, that would have been so hard for him. He wouldn't be able to honor his Vesta. So providing, like being true to yourself and in your relationships, if you have these placements, and finding ways to support yourself and others is very important for you. If you have Vesta in Gemini or in the third house, it's very mental. It's like the sex organs up here. It's by networking, exchanging of ideas. You can alienate people by talking too much. It's sort of like, just shut up, get on with it, right? And, you know, just talking through things. And if you might feel a bit, you know, insecure, just talking a little bit too much to cover that insecurity. But they need that mental connection, the very Gemini. And they like working on the mind and improving it and doing things that keeps the mind active. It's needed. It's about having, you know, having that connection with your family, very Cancerian. But they can alienate others if they, you know, have that disconnection, and they might over imagine things and play things in their heads too much. It's like over dramatizing, you know, sometimes, you know, it's 3 a.m. you wake up and you catastrophize in your head, that kind of thing. Sexually, they just love being loved and cherished. I feel like, you know, Robin Williams, he got on the stage, everyone had that expectation, you're gonna make me laugh. You know, they might have put pressure on him, but he also loved that exchange of energy. So it would have been very dedicated to family, and that might have been something that would have come from a very young age, you know, and it might be a bit restrictive for them, but they do need to be quite empathetic. I love Clark Gable. And seeing this placement, Vesta in Leo in the 5th house, very much love being in the limelight. On the way here, I checked my family's chart, and I was saying to Cheryl before, my daughter's got Vesta in Leo, and she's a double Leo, which explains that, ta-da, she does that. So I won't be surprised if she ends up on the stage in some form. But, you know, and Clark Gable was an oil miner, you know, was working on rigs, and he ended up in Hollywood. You know, creativity for them, for this placement is huge, but their star might shine so bright that they'll burn out everyone around them and not give them the attention they need. So, you know, very Leo things, they're having excessive pride or arrogance can stifle their energy, and they want to be romanticized, they want to be admired. So on some level, Clark Gable just loved being the Hollywood leading man. And they're very devoted to their art. They're very devoted to what they're doing and their children, if that's where their creative outlet is. If you have Vesta in Virgo or the 6th house, it is about doing things well. You know, very Virgo-like, being very dedicated and productive. You can limit yourself by either growing up from being over-criticized or having that self-criticism that's just like, that's not perfect enough, you know, very Virgo. And it can affect your health. Johnny Depp, he, you know, turned to drugs and alcohol growing up, and as well, and probably still does, because he still has it. You'll see in his chart, you know, that self-criticism that he grew up with. His mother gave him his first guitar, but if we look to it, I'll show you his chart. I'm like, wow, I should show you his chart, because it's very interesting, this placement. you can see he has Vesta in an easy opposition with his nodal axis. And you have the moon there as well. You've also got, now see what I mean about the asteroids popping up in a huge stellium? And we want to keep those orbs tight. But if you were in a consultation with Johnny Depp, you would definitely bring Juno and Ceres into the story there. There's something going on there. He had a very difficult relationship with his mother. She could have been like, why did I give you that guitar? You left school at 16 and you want to be a rock star, and you know, you could have done something more efficient with that. Well, look at him now, you know. And if you look at every photo of him in a role, it's not the same person in the eyes. It's that devoted to his work. So it's very, you know, Virgo-like, to be very productive and do things right. Sexually, they like to comfort their partners. And when I see this placement, it's like, it could be that one night stand and you want to go back and you're like, well, then why did you sleep with me? And it's like, because you needed it. You're welcome. I've heard that happen. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, it's Johnny Depp. Anyway, let's go to Libra. If you have, I have Vesta in Libra, or in the 7th house, it's about balance and collaborating with others. You'll find that you work better in collaboration. You can work on your own, but there's something extra when you work in collaboration with others. You can alienate yourself from others by comparing yourself to others. So don't do that. If you've got this placement, it will really come back at you, and it's a horrible thing. Yes, I am talking about from life experience. You can be over-focused on relationship and have that conflict between being independent and collaborating with someone. And here I've got the need to be accepted and admired takes over your own needs. It's like, you know, you meet someone and becoming like them just to make them feel happy rather than being who you are. That's a tough life lesson for me. I admit it. It's just be yourself. You know, people will admire you for who you are. Sexually, it's about give and take, everything to be equal. And they are devoted to working on their relationships, having a happy relationship for them. It's not the be all and end all of everything, but just having that partner there is important for this placement. And Whitney Houston had Vesta in Libra in the 7th house. Like a double whammy there. Very wide conjunction with Mars and Ceres. See what I mean? How we're kind of breaking the rules here, but in consultation, you can't ignore it. I would definitely, in a consultation, start off with Vesta, you know, opposing the moon. Talk about that in the 1st house there was Jupiter and in Aries. You know, it's very big for her. She had to straddle that, and she's in a grand cross with her nodal axis. So relationships for her were very important. She was dealing with some things that came in from her past life. Could talk about these charts forever and move on in the interest of time. So if you have Vesta in Scorpio or in the 8th house, like Jane Fonda, it's about, you know, very 8th house being devoted to your work and being very thorough and doing things right, and usually with others. You can have alienation, especially sexually, because it's Scorpio, by having any guilt or shame from a very young age, or not finding the right partner for you sexually. You need to, if you've got this placement, you need that equality and to explore the things you want to explore. Some people they like what they like, and that's totally okay. But if you've got this placement, you need someone who honors that as well. You're dedicated to whatever you're doing and really devoted to what you're doing. So you have that intensity. And you could have some psychic abilities. They will be someone who you would find here today, hopefully. Now, Jane Fonda has Vesta in Scorpio, and I've selectively chosen these charts because they're through these axes that we were talking about. In the 9th house, in Scorpio there. And it makes a square to her Jupiter and Pallas Athena. So she does things completely different, and she has. And she's an activist as well for what she believes in. She'll really, you know, go for it. And what I love is that she recycles her clothes. She's not like other celebrities that just chuck it out, you know, wear it once. You know, she really honors that. I love that. If you have Vesta in Sagittarius or the 9th house, it's more about what you believe in. So that also would tie in with Jane Fonda's chart. You would alienate yourself when you're so consumed, you will not be open to anyone else's ideals. And, you know, you need to express yourself honestly. You can use your sexual energy, if you're not using it, into ideals and causes and seeking the truth. Now, I wasn't originally going to put Miley Cyrus's chart up, but I saw her Netflix, with David Letterman, if you've seen it, and I thought she was famous just because of her dad, but she's actually really super talented. She's amazing. And I love the way she talked, and very honestly.
What was that?
Miley Cyrus.
Oh.
Yeah. For her dad paved her way for her. And she has Vesta white conjunction with her son on the descendant. And I found that really, really interesting. She's had several relationships that were publicized, but she was trying to be true to herself. Now, the reason why I put her up is because her godmother, Dolly Parton, they're very closely tied. Now, Dolly Parton has Vesta in Capricorn in the 10th, or if you have Vesta in Capricorn or in the 10th house, it's about work for you. You need to find the job that is meant for you. Your job is your life purpose. Otherwise, you'll hate going to work, pretty much. And you'll have that ambition, but very Saturnian. You might be overcritical. You might be quite rigid. And sexually, you need that commitment, very Saturnian, being there for the long haul. And she's been married for decades. And she hides her husband from everyone. No one really knows who. I think she put a paper bag over him once and took a photo for Christmas or something, And it's very much about putting in the hard work. And I thought it was fascinating because she is Miley Cyrus's godmother, and she has Vesta, very wide conjunction to her son as well. And one of the things that Miley said, she didn't want to do the Grammys. And she consulted her godmother, and Dolly Parton said, honey, you do you, I'll do me, and together we'll do we. And I was like, that is so Vesta, so Vesta and son. And she absolutely sparkled. And Dolly Parton, she's like, put on the wig, put on the makeup and the clothes and the heels, and just be fabulous. And that's what they do. You never really know who Dolly Parton is. If you ask her partner, it's not the same person, and they hide that. If, like Lauren Bacall, you have Vesta in Aquarius or the 11th house, it's about connecting with larger groups, and having humanitarianism, social or political motivations. You might rebel against authority figures, and that could be a little bit troublesome. And you might, take on that Aquarian energy of being a little bit cold and not being sensitive to others. Sexually, you want the unusual, the friends with benefits, as we say. But they would learn through this, understanding the importance of groups and friendships in their lives, the group interactions, and being devoted to that. And finally, if you have Vesta in Pisces or in the 12th house, it's about serving others and taking the time out when you want to take the time out. I would say with this placement, it's the most important to honor when they're like that balsamic phase. Take that time out. You can alienate or limit yourself by, having those past lives like persecutions and you don't know why. You might have the meditations where you see these past lives or be told about them, but not work through that soul wound. Or playing the martyr, and putting on, the suffering onto them. Sexually, you would be a person who, like the Vestal Virgins, I choose you, you don't choose me. And they would be dedicated by selfless service with spiritual values and building their dreams. So I hope that's helpful if you know your Vesta, if it provides more insight. Sorry, is that a question? No? Okay, cool. I just quickly want to go with the time we've got remaining about synastry and transits. So when I did the Juno presentation, you're probably thinking, you're taking a shortcut. I thought, but wouldn't it be interesting? Like we looked at Juno with these couples and how they are in relationships, but what about how they are within themselves in a relationship? So we're flipping it. So Brad Pitt has Vesta conjunct his sun. A lot of celebrities have this. I thought that was interesting. In Sagittarius, in the 1st house, and Jennifer has Vesta in Taurus in the 7th house. And when we put the synastry together, I found it interesting that Jennifer's moon falls right on his Vesta. So he loved being with her. I think this was a relationship. They really loved each other. But I found it also interesting that Jennifer's Vesta falls on Brad's Hygeia in Taurus, but it's in the 5th house. And I'm wondering, would that have something to do with any fertility issues? Because some, Vesta things are fertility issues. But, it was very publicized. Why she couldn't have children, it's none of anyone's business. As far as I'm concerned, her children are her movies and are her shows, and she's brilliant at making these things. And she's channeled that energy into there. But then you're wondering, well, when Angelina came along, what's going there? Some people are like, ugh, Angelina in the audience. Her Vesta is in Pisces in the 9th house. She chose Brad. It's Brad's Vesta falls into her 5th house. So it's like brought the children into her life. And her Vesta falls close to his IC. So there's something interesting there happening, with the home, they opened a family. But it's more their Juno story that I found more prominent. But I found interesting how Brad would bring in the children into the 5th house with that Vesta, that creative energy. Now, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, whenever I see their charts, it's like so obvious. It's like we met in college, we both want to be presidents, we're going to help each other get there. And I really see that in their charts. Bill's Vesta, I was like, what? It's on the descendant of all people. I thought it was hilarious. But it's retrograde, it's in Aries, and Hillary's Vesta is on the 8th and 9th house cusp and in Cancer. So she's very much someone who's devoted to her family. Despite her political aspirations, she was really devoted to her family. Hillary's Vesta makes an out of sign wide conjunction to Bill's Saturn there. And I found that really interesting. It's like bringing the home, very publicly. Everything to do with Chelsea and their family was very public. But when Monica entered the story, and I keep saying Monica is just a younger version of Hillary. Her Vesta is in the 10th house, conjunct her sun. There's another conjunction there with the sun. And Monica's Vesta falls right on Bill's Saturn. So there's some lessons there, very public lessons in Leo, right? And even when we flip it around, we still have that conjunction in the 10th house, very publicly. Things really came out there. Did they want the attention? That's something really like, did they want that to be publicized? Was it all a stint? I did not have relations with that woman. Are you sure?
Her Venus is conjunct his sun.
Her Venus is conjunct his sun. Where are we? Oh, sorry. Yes. Very well spotted. Yeah, absolutely. So there could be something beyond that. Did they fabricate it? Did they want it to get out in there? Or was it really something genuine? And unfortunately, it got leaked out. We don't know. Another political couple. I found it really interesting that Jackie's Vesta in Cancer, so very family oriented, in the 8th house. JFK's Vesta is a wide conjunction with his Chiron in Pisces over the 5th and 6th house cusp. And it makes, well, one thing that really struck me was how JFK's Pluto is right on her Vesta. And her Juno is on the South Node there as well. And for me, I don't know, just seeing that Pluto, it's like hindsight gives us foresight. It scares me, to be honest. If we look ahead to Aristotle Onassis, who she married a few years, I think later in the 60s, after JFK was assassinated. Now, Aristotle's Vesta is in Capricorn in the 9th house. So very, very devoted to his career. He knows what he wants. And when I see this placement, he knew what he was doing when he married Jackie O. It was like to put his foot into America. He had built an empire in Greece. He built airlines. He wanted to expand. And I was telling my mum, Mrs. Sagittarius, about this. She goes, oh, didn't you know? He killed JFK. I'm like, oh, come on, Mum, what are you talking about? And she goes, it'll come out one day. Well, what did you think? He wanted Jackie O. Did he, though? Looking at the astrology. Because his Neptune falls on her Vesta. Was he enamored with Jackie O and had that illusion that he would expand into America? For Jackie O, she had that illusion, he's a millionaire. I'm secure for the rest of my life. Because goodness knows how long the American pension will last. Because he, at the same time, had an affair with Maria Callas. So, you know, being a stay-at-home mum, I watch a lot of TV. And there is a documentary on Netflix with Maria Callas. And it's about a lot of her interviews that she gave over the years. And she would always call Aristotle her friend. But it turns out she was impregnated by him. They did have an affair and he did not want a baby by her. And that broke her heart. I don't know if she miscarried or she aborted. But there's one thing that they say, or she says in an interview, and she says her mother, you know, would tell her, you know, get married and have children, you know, be the good great girl. And she's like, well, not everyone needs to do that. You know, you can be devoted to your own creativity in what you love doing. And I thought that was very Vesta of her. Her Vesta is also conjunct her sun in Jupiter. Conjunct Jupiter. Very wide stellium there. And it's in the first house. Very much being a singer was very important to her. And her Pallas Athena falls right on Aristotle's Vesta, which I thought was very interesting. He saw this creative diva, you know, and loved seeing, you know, I think he loved being with her, but seeing that illusion of Jackie O come in sort of broke that. I mean, this is all speculation from what we can see from the charts. You need to consult with you need to talk with a client and, you know, let's say series. You say, tell me about your mother. And almost what will come out will be the sign placement of series, which is very fascinating. And you'll find out more with these placements. So, Karen Carpenter in transit. I came across this. I think it's intuition. I think it's the universe. It freaked me out. Firstly, how I got onto this. Cheryl sent me the little snippet that you sent me. And I saw Karen Carpenter. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because she's a serious story. If you don't know Karen, she was one half of the Carpenters in the 1970s. Her voice is that of an angel. Once you hear her song, it's just like that earworm. It's beautiful. And she had anorexia nervosa and died of a heart attack as a result. And her series is conjunct Hygeia and Chiron over that 5th and 6th house. It is in a T-square with her Vesta in Pisces and Saturn. Would you bring Juno in? Yeah, you would. Yeah, in consultation and through the conversation. And how to balance that T-square, getting out into the world. I think she did that well. But I was really curious. I looked up the date of her death to see, oh, what's Vesta doing in transit? And she's in the Vesta of return. It was separating. And I found it really freaky because the 4th of Feb is also my father passed away about 3rd of Feb, nearly 10 years ago. And I'm just like, oh, it's like he was telling me to put it up. But I just thought, oh my goodness, this Vesta transit and in Pisces was, you know, her death chart. And it's her leaving this plane going, right, I've done everything I had to do. I think she had a broken heart as well. Heart conditions usually are from a broken heart spiritually. And she went on. So I thought that was really fascinating with that one. Right now, well, about an hour ago, Vesta is currently in Leo and she's conjunct Virgo. And she's opposing Pluto, who's retrograde for 1 degree.
Mercury.
Sorry?
Conjunct Mercury.
Conjunct Mercury, sorry. Yes, that's right. Opposing Pluto. And I found it really interesting. I put this transiting chart on my birth chart and it's in the 3rd house. This falls. I'm like, of course, you can't make this up. So it's really cool, you know, talking about this. I'm trying to be creative. I hope I haven't sent you to sleep. So in summary, Vesta is about our mission and our Dharma in life. You know, she sits there on ascendant, You think, the ascendant, it's about the face that you show. It's not just about that. She's very deep. She's about our life purpose beyond ourselves, going on our life purpose, but being true to ourselves while we conduct our life purpose and not losing sight of it. And I find, as I said, I find it really important for mothers or new mothers. You can take a scenic tour in life. You can leave things if you want. A lot of women get, back in the 50s, they were punished if they went to work. Now they're punished if they don't go to work. Okay, it's okay, take your own scenic route. And if your life purpose is like, oh, I really want to be a movie star, but I want to take care of my kids, that's okay. You can always go back to it as long as you don't lose sight of who you truly are in your dreams. Because what warms your heart keeps your flame alive. And it's about being true to yourself in the highest form. So I want to thank everyone for having me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was worth the trek through the rain. If you want to find out more, these are my links. And if you want to read more about the asteroids, these books are really good resources. So thank you for listening. Thank you at home. Yeah, any questions? We'll start with, should we start with the Zoom or should we start with the floor? Okay, let's start with Zoom. Chat. Okay, so I'll go through this. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Okay, so from Ross, this is a really good comment. The age of, do you see it up there? You do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the age of enlightenment, also the age of reason and the enlightenment. Sorry, something's happened to me tonight. Also, the age of reason and the Enlightenment was the intellectual and philosophical movement that occurred in Europe in the 17th and 18th centuries. Yeah, very enlightening. Absolutely. Cancer month started. The leaking ceiling was fixed. The new washing machine finally arrived. And my consciousness. Oh my goodness. When it rains, it pours. Yeah. Okay. Mars, the moon, and sun with Uranus square opposite have tantrums, what I can tell from my family. Just a small personal sample. Yeah, absolutely. Uranus has not been called an asteroid yet. Did I call it an asteroid? No, it's not. Oh, it's probably when I was talking about the Venus scarlet. Sorry, you're right. They're back. Yes. Can you please show Vesta in the 4th house again? Okay. I can. Let me do that first. No, wrong one. Let's minimize that. Apologies. So I'll just go back. Where are we? So Vesta in the 4th house. There we go. And I'll just check again if there's any comments about Vesta in the 4th house there. Mercury opposing Pluto transit to do. Yes. Transit is ascendant, which also means you are on the right path. That's really cool. I love, incorporating the numbers in. Yes. Thank you for the talk. Thank you, Anne. Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Is there anything about the 4th house? Can I go back to Sina? Is there anything you wanted to ask about? Sorry, Titania. Yes.
Hi, this is my computer. It says that. There's also Pluto opposing Mercury today at 1717. That also means you're on the right path, 1717. So I thought that was really thing. And that was really I didn't say about the Vesta transit, but what exactly does Vesta opposing Pluto mean? Because I look in my chart, but I can't see Vesta.
Oh, you'll see it'll be something that you'll need to select. Are you an AstroGold on your phone?
No, I have an astrologer friend who put me onto these meetings. I'll get another reading done by her, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be able to see where Vesta will pop up in all your other.
What does Vesta opposing or Pluto transits mean?
Look, whenever I see Pluto, there's a form of transformation happening.
Transformation, definitely. I'm writing 2 books on him actually, one fiction on one non-fiction.
Oh wow. Look at that. And with Mercury opposing too. And it's sort of balancing the two there with that creativity.
Communications, I'm all about art and writing. Like I had a home organizer in today and I've been on a clutter clearing frenzy for the last 2 months now, and I've recycled about 400 notes in the last 2 months. So
Wow. So really getting into there, really focusing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
I've been a bit of a recycling diva, and an article of mine's going to be printed in a magazine soon.
Oh, well done. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Congrats.
Panorama magazine to do with mental health, and I wrote an article about clutter clearing and the environment, protecting the environment, because I'm passionate about the Gaia.
It's amazing. Oh, that's great.
It's
Yeah.
to
that
me all
clear
about
picture there.
Libra's
Gaia.
the soul, and Neptune's about the subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was just saying to my friend that I felt Hestia present with all the clutter clearing and stuff, and then there's this webinar. I'm like, synchronicity rules.
That's true. You can't make it up, can you?
No, truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. I think I'm channeling my elf king for my fantasy.
Exactly. That's awesome.
He channeled Lord of the Rings and George Lucas Star Wars, because they say all that's real in alternate dimensions and faraway galaxies and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think
Oh, that's
my elf king probably exists in some alternate world or something.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic.
My mother and me are
Look
both
at that.
writing stories about elves for NaNoWriMo, Camp NaNoWriMo. And so far in the last 3 days, I've written 10,000 words. I've been a writing diva, you know, that's the Mercury coming out, I think. My mum's written about, I think, about 5,000 words. And so that's our Mercury coming out. And NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. And so it happens in April, July, and November. So my aim is to write 100,000 words this month.
Oh, go for it. I think it's a little camp that's
self
happening
as well.
in July. Yeah.
Pardon?
It's a camp, isn't it? That's happening in July.
It's technically at home. It's not really a camp, but
No, exactly. They call it the camp.
and it's just sort of like a mad writing frenzy. And the aim is to write about 50K. And but I want to do 100, and so I've got to get my stories out there. I write self-help and non-fiction and stuff as well. So I'm passionate about writing the stories in my soul and creating the art in my heart.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you're honoring that. Thank you so much for sharing, Tatiana.
I have an art therapist too, so she's the one that helped me clutter clear, because that's another one of her specialties.
Oh yeah, sorry. We've got a question for the floor.
I'm finished. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
I think you said at the start that Vesta can be, did you say it's kind of co-rules Virgo and Scorpio?
That's right, yes.
When I see the co-rulership of Aquarius with Saturn and Uranus,
Yes.
I'll often consider it's an either or scenario. So do you feel that the descriptions of Vesta in the placements in the chart, depending on whether you're a Virgo leaning versus a Scorpio leaning, expresses differently?
I think it can, but you'll only know that when you're in consultation with someone, and and talking about themselves, you'll see which way that they'll probably be swaying more, and where there might be issues, and just talking in consultation about them, because generally someone will come to you because they just need to talk or just explore those issues as well. So you'll know. You've got Virgo and Scorpio themes in your mind and which one they're leaning towards, and probably seeing the aspects that are happening in transit as well. Yeah.
In asking that question, I have a square, Vesta square Saturn. Saturn's in Gemini, and I felt that I identified a lot more with the Virgo than the Scorpio.
Oh, right. Sorry, it was just alerted for everyone at home that to repeat the question, which was, since Vesta has that co-rulership between Virgo and Scorpio, just like as you find like Aquarius has Saturn and Uranus, if you can find those themes, either one or the other or together. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, people tend to express one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because Saturnian Aquarians are very different to Uranian Aquarians.
Yes, they are. Yeah. So they'll either express one way or the other. And I was saying you've got to, like in consultation with a client, to find out where they're going and look at the aspects that are happening in transit as well. Yes. Yes.
I mean, with some initial, I was wondering, where does Vesta orbit, and does it overlap any orbit of any other planet?
I have no idea. So, excellent question. From what I've seen, I think it's pretty, standard. She doesn't have like a weird orbit like Pluto. you know, I think Ceres as well goes out, doesn't she? Or does Vesta go out?
No, because they're in the asteroid belt, they stay between Mars and Jupiter. I don't
Okay.
think they move out of
They
it.
don't move out of it much. Yeah, they don't move out of it much. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you clarify a little bit more? I understand why it's ruling Virgo, but I'm trying to work out the Scorpio, how that's connecting into Scorpio.
So it's connecting into Scorpio because of the Vestal virgins and how they weren't really virgins, so to speak. So they, you know, they also express their sexuality as well.
Right.
But so it's like preparing as a virgin and before a union and after a union as well, and having that polarity, but not losing yourself in between of that. And that's, you know, the patriarchy brought in Libra as well. Oh, you need someone else to be whole. But with Vesta, it's like, no, I know who I am. I know who I am before. I unite with someone, I know who I am after. And that's where those two things come out.
Because I think, I'm not sure about this, in the older astrology, the sign Libra wasn't there at one stage. Or I have a
That's right.
direction.
That's right. Yeah.
This is just Virgo, Scorpio.
It went Virgo, Scorpio, and then sort of like chopped up Scorpio, and Libra was there.
Right.
And that's where that balance came in.
I just realized how important was I'm Virgo ascendant.
Yeah.
And I have a sun and moon in the 8th house in Taurus, opposed by Chiron.
Okay.
To the moon,
Yeah.
from the 2nd house. So
Wow.
at the moment, Vesta has just passed over the Mercury conjunction, Mercury, going back a little bit to about the 22nd of June, to opposing Pluto, which is opposing my solar arc sun.
Oh, wow.
So Vesta has just conjuncted a few days ago my solar arc sun.
Yeah.
Going on.
Very interesting. Yeah. How, you know, they just like question, I believe, or 2 new messages. Apologies. Thank you. 3.6 Earth years. Right. Yes.
If you like, that pure
Yeah.
virgin,
Yes.
and the holy harlot, if you like.
Well, that's the thing. She was a holy harlot, but she was pure of a soul.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was like that theme that even though, you know, she was
Okay, there we go.
Oh, so that mute happened. Is there anything where was the last thing you heard at home?
They're all muted.
You're muted. Anyone not muted, or just like to type in what the last thing, because there was a very interesting discussion just happened there about Mary and Mary Magdalene. So like the 2 M's of the Virgo and Scorpio, and how like Virgo's the Virgin Mary and Scorpio's the Mary Magdalene. So you've got the pure and the pure of soul, no matter what happened or what she was doing as well.
Also in the runes, you have 2 that look like the letter M.
Yes.
And one is the male and female horse kind of situation pulling together, or, or not.
Yeah.
And the other one is to do with the hemispheres of the brain representing the mind of man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the runes. Yeah.
Wow. So that's in the runes as well.
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing. I love that synergy.
Just thinking of the letter M. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool.
So it's those 2 opposing energies, the male and female, the male and the stallion, like trying to work together.
Yes.
Like partnership, kind of marriage stuff.
That's like the chariot in tarot.
Up
Yes.
to mankind, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Cool. Do we have any more questions at home or? No. Here we go. We've got a comment. Mercury opposing Pluto can be a scientist researching the spotlight, the astrologer's handbook. Yes. Very interesting. We are researching a bit. Absolutely. I'm a scientist in a past life, so yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much. If there are no more questions, thank you very much everyone for coming today and everyone at home.
That was amazing. Thank you to everybody at home. I think it's probably easier if we
Okay. Say nothing.
yeah. I might just end this here. We'll be going for drinks after. Hopefully you'll be there to chat, but if not,
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
my
pressure.
night off.